I may be back for you.
Hello everyone, Jay Warden here and welcome to my recap and review of the episode A Matter of Honor, Season 2's first truly excellent episode where we learn more about the culture and customs of the Klingons as Riker takes a brief tour of duty as a Klingon First Officer. Don't forget those spoilers, otherwise, enjoy. The Enterprise is picking up some replacement personnel as well as a chap called Mendon, who is here as part of an interspecies officer exchange program to help everyone learn about each other. Mendon looks a lot like Wesley's old friend from Season 1, Mordok, but is politely told otherwise. Mendon though is a bit of an arrogant twat and thinks he'll be able to improve things for everyone on the ship. Riker meanwhile joins Picard for some target practice and tells him as part of the exchange program, someone from the Enterprise should go and serve on a Klingon ship because nothing says fun like living on a Klingon ship for a few days. Riker of course is all about fun and immediately volunteers, so Picard makes it so. Riker then spends the next few days brushing up on his knowledge about Klingon culture and customs from Worf and trying out some of their tasty looking cuisine too, much to Pulaski's disgust. Later on, Worf gives him an emergency transponder just in case Riker gets into any trouble during his stay, so they can quickly locate and beam him back to safety, which I'm sure won't need to be used at all during this episode. Finally, they hook up with the Klingon vessel Park with Captain Kargan in command. Kargan is all business and tells them to beam Riker over immediately and dismisses Picard's high praise of Riker as something he'll judge for himself. Meanwhile, Mendon continues to be an arrogant twat, suggesting how he can make everything better, even trying to tell Picard directly, who politely brushes him off while Worf quickly puts him in his place and sends him back to his station. However, Mendon observes some odd readings from the Klingon ship's hull but decides to keep it to himself for now. Once on board the Klingon ship, Riker is escorted to Kargan, who quickly puts him on the spot regarding where his loyalties will lie, and Riker stands firm and says he'll do what he came here to do, and that's to serve, fight, and even die with them if necessary. However, his second officer, Lieutenant Clark, thinks this is bullshit and challenges Riker's authority, who does the Klingon thing in response and promptly beats the shit out of him. As a result, Clark instantly gains respect for Riker and falls in line. Back on the Enterprise, Worf notices an unknown substance on the hull which seems to be eating away at it. It seems to be the same thing that Mendon noticed earlier on the Park's hull, and then happily informs Picard about how he noticed it earlier but wasn't going to tell anyone until he completed his analysis. Picard gives him a mild bollocking and then sets him to the task of finding out everything he can about it. On the Park, Riker dines with his new crewmates, not expecting the food to actually be alive as he eats it, shares some jokes, learns some things about the Klingon way of life, and even catches the eye of some handsome looking Klingon women, with Riker happily saying he'll have them both. But it's time to put Riker in jeopardy, and as Mendon and Data confirm the organism lights its metal, they also confirm the Klingon ship is at far greater risk and that its hull will eventually collapse, so Picard tells Worf to contact them and to try and locate the Park. Already a small hull breach has occurred and made the Klingons aware of the situation. Kargan asks Riker what it might be, but of course Riker has no idea. Kargan though is convinced that it was put there on purpose by the Enterprise because they were the only ship they had contact with recently, and of course Mendon scanned the area affected intensely for several minutes, further convincing Kargan it's a weapon of some kind. Riker though has no answers for him but tries to reassure him that it's no weapon. Kargan though is becoming an obstinate twat and decides the only reasonable response is to cloak up and attack the Enterprise, and even suspects Riker is simply a spy, which puts Riker in a bit of an awkward position. Clark though stands up for Riker saying he's no coward, but then things take a turn for the worse as they pick up the Enterprise moving to intercept them, which further convinces Kargan that this can only possibly be a hostile action on their part. Riker once again tries to convince Kargan, who once again puts him on the spot regarding his loyalties and oaths to both him and Starfleet, but Riker manages to walk the line, impressing Kargan that he's prepared to die with him without giving up any tactical secrets about the Enterprise. However, fails to dissuade him from attacking the Enterprise, despite hails from them telling them they found the solution to clean the organism from the hull and an offer to help with repairs. So it's time to whip out the emergency transponder that Worf gave Riker earlier, but instead of beaming himself back, Riker manages to trick Kargan into taking it instead, and the Enterprise beams in on the bridge thinking they're rescuing Riker. Enraged, Kargan tries to shoot Picard but is promptly phasered by Worf, knocking him out. But the cunning ploy has allowed Riker to take command of the Park, who asserts his authority, decloaks the ship, and demands Picard's surrender, who amusingly obliges. With the situation diffused, Riker puts on his best stone-cold poker face, tersely accepts Picard's offer of help to remove the organism and repair the damage it caused. With Kargan beamed back to his ship, Riker gives him back command but realises that Kargan has lost face by being tricked, so basically goads Kargan into smacking him across the room, allowing him to reassert his authority and regain his dignity the Klingon way, before telling Clark to throw him off the ship. Back aboard the Enterprise, sporting an impressive bruise, he thanks Worf for his little gizmo but thoroughly enjoyed the experience nonetheless. Finally, the first truly excellent episode of Season 2. Not flawless certainly, but absolutely a joy to watch from start to finish, and I might gush about this one for a bit. It's a great Riker episode, building upon his character traits established in Season 1. It's our second foray into Klingon culture and impressively builds upon what was established in Heart of Glory, and it's got some awesome character moments between Riker and the Klingons themselves. So, where to start? Well, first I think I'll get the biggest problem of the episode out of the way first, and by biggest, it's not really a huge problem per se, just a slight detriment really, and that's Captain Kargan. He's obstinate to the point of stupidity because despite decades of peace with the Federation, he simply automatically assumes the Enterprise was out to destroy them and stubbornly refuses to consider any other possible options or solutions except essentially suiciding his ship and crew against the Enterprise. Yes, there were some circumstantially suspicious actions by the Enterprise, but not enough to ignore any attempts at reason. A bird of prey, under normal circumstances anyway, is no match for a Galaxy-class ship, and any attack would have failed once the Enterprise put its shields up. I understand that they realised the Park was doomed because of the organism, but not to even try and talk to Picard? Even the rest of the crew seemed unsure about what Kargan was doing here, given the obvious respect Riker had earned from them. As I said, it's only a minor detriment because amongst this stupid action is still some great character stuff for Riker as he manages to trick Kargan and take command of the Park in order to defuse the situation, yet still maintain the Klingon sense of honour by demanding the Enterprise's surrender, something which Picard also recognises and obliges to. There's also a couple of really good moments between Kargan and Riker, and the first is when Kargan questions him on his loyalties. He wants to know the best way to attack the Enterprise, but Riker won't give up the secrets and at the same time is still prepared to fight and die alongside them in an attack on the Enterprise as well. I think this was probably more a bluff on Riker's part, we all know he's good at poker, or at the very least he realises that any attack is doomed to failure on their part, so he thinks there's little risk to the Enterprise itself. In any case, even Kargan gives some serious respect to Riker for his response, and it's a great little moment. The other great moment is at the end when Kargan beams back to the Park and resumes command. Riker recognises that Kargan has lost his dignity and respect in the eyes of the crew because of how he had his command taken from him. So when Kargan orders him back to his station, Riker deliberately challenges him by ignoring the order and growling at him, letting Kargan floor him across the deck. This allows Kargan to restore some dignity and authority in a way only a Klingon can, and Clark even acknowledges this to Riker as he escorts him off. One final little moment involving Kargan I did like was when he got beamed to the Enterprise's bridge. He tries to attack Picard, but Worf is actually on his game here, recognising what's about to happen, and in an awesome little detail, Data instantly moves himself in front of Picard to protect him. It all happens in the space of a second or two, but it's very nicely done. So with Kargan out of the way, let's look at the rest. This episode builds upon the initial foundations laid down in Heart of Glory about this new Klingon culture that's being established. I've already covered many of my thoughts on the Klingons from TOS to TNG in that episode, so check out my review for that. But in brief, the TOS era Klingons were little more than mustache-twirling villains that were an allegory to the Soviet Union. Heart of Glory started to actually create a culture for the Klingons, how they view death, their longing for battle and glory and honour, and how some of them have difficulty adjusting to the peace with the Federation. However, our only real perspectives there were from Worf, an outsider, 2 renegade Klingons, and a brief interaction with a Klingon captain. Here is a much closer look at a proper Klingon crew, and this is sold brilliantly during the dinner scene in the Klingon mess hall. It's just several minutes of Riker and the crew chatting, learning about each other, getting in banter and jokes, and doing a fantastic job of making the Klingons seem like a genuine and believable species with their own culture and customs beyond TOS era "Muhahaha, I'm evil." It's also great to see these Klingons properly without Worf being there because it gives us an unfettered view we've never seen before rather than just through the prism of Worf's eyes and upbringing. We're not quite at the Ronald D. Moore Klingon era just yet, but this really helps build upon those initial foundations with some solid support. Brian Thompson, who plays Clark, did a great job here with the character. Initially coming off as a troublemaker, he's actually someone we end up liking, respecting, and even sympathising with as he tells the story of his dishonoured father. Although he's pretty much disowned his father for being captured in battle, you can tell how much it actually hurts Clark that this is how it is, and I can't help but feel that Clark really does want to reach out to his father but simply can't because of cultural rules. I also really enjoyed the bond and respect he formed with Riker and the two going back and forth as they learn about each other. This is also Thompson's first foray into Star Trek and is often reliable playing a big gruff bad guy, but is also an underrated actor in my opinion, proven here by the aforementioned scene regarding his father. As for Riker, this is an awesome character episode for him, probably his best yet since 11001001, still a mouthful to say. Here we once again see Riker's dedication to his duty and how he goes all in to a task once he commits to it, and even relishes the challenge, shown by him diving headfirst into Klingon cuisine early on, much to the disgust of Pulaski and Picard, as well as getting some help from Worf on how the Klingon chain of command operates. I was amused he didn't realise that Gach was served live, but nonetheless still went ahead and ate it anyway, which was also combined with a nice character moment between him and the other Klingons about learning how to do things they otherwise don't know how to do. Riker also proves how quickly he can think on his feet and how in doing his homework he knows how to actually deal with the Klingons on their terms, and it's all great stuff. So while this is all happening on the Park, there's a similar situation on the Enterprise with the character of Mendon. I didn't care for this quite as much, but it's still pretty well done. Mendon is a friendly and polite enough kind of guy, but very arrogant in how he thinks that he can just waltz in and make everything better on the ship. His scanning and withholding of information about the space organism ties into the plot aboard the Klingon ship, and is what sets Kargan off on his stupid course of action. And while I could have done without that, it is a nice little character piece as Picard gives him a mild dressing down, but is ultimately understanding and diplomatic, simply saying, well, okay, that's not how we do things here, don't do it again, now go figure out everything you can and how we can deal with it. It's great management without resorting to shouting and berating Mendon. This also allows Mendon to realise his arrogance got him into trouble and works to adjust and adapt to the new situation. Even Wesley gets a nice little moment with him as he manages to console and encourage Mendon to stop feeling sorry for himself and deal with it. There's actually a nice little callback to Season 1's coming of age, as Wesley at first thinks Mendon is Mordok, the Benzite he met in that episode. Although Mendon is played by the same actor here, it's explained that Mendon is simply part of the same gene pool as Mordok, hence why they all look so alike. Unlike Season 1 so far, Wesley has been very quiet and in the background for most of Season 2 so far, being completely unannoying and just doing his job, occasionally getting a character moment in, though I know soon he is to get his own episode. The last thing I want to talk about here are the exterior space shots. This is the first appearance in TNG for the iconic Klingon bird of prey, one of my favourite ship designs in all of Trek. I mean, if I were to pick a ship I could have, a bird of prey would be on one of my top 5 lists for sure. However, something struck me as I watched the exterior shots when it's with the Enterprise, and then it hit me. They reused footage from The Search for Spock and spliced it in. You can see it here as the ship turns away from the Enterprise to leave, and then at the end again as it leaves, it's an exact match for the bird of prey arriving on Vulcan at the end of that movie. You can even still see the bright orange lighting on the hull. I suppose before TNG was remastered this was quite easy to miss, but in full HD Blu-ray glory it's actually rather glaring and obvious. I've already mentioned in The Child how I feel the remastered special effects in Season 2 are not nearly as good as Season 1 so far, and I felt this is something they could have cleaned up better or at least made less obvious, but overall this is just a minor nitpick. That said, the set design of the bird of prey is good. It's got a dark, gritty feel which seems appropriate for a Klingon ship and is a stark contrast to the bright, even lighting of a Federation ship. So, an excellent episode I thoroughly enjoyed, and I'm pretty sure the next episode is going to be just as good, if not better, as we finally hit a fan favourite, The Measure of a Man, where Data's status as either a mere machine or a living being with the right to choose is put on trial. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did then please do check out my other reviews as well, and also if you haven't yet, please like, subscribe and share. Until next time, this is Jay Warden, signing off.